Hello and welcome to the Chartered Institute of Housing podcast. I'm Stephanie Morphew, Policy Lead for Homelessness, Domestic Abuse and Supported Housing. In this episode, we are discussing how emerging AI technologies in the housing sector have the potential to transform our work and the risks and considerations we must take when adopting these new tools. Artificial intelligence, AI, is developing at a rapid pace and can be found in everyday applications and decision making. It can be both attractive and daunting to embrace these challenges. The advantages are ample, giving time back to busy colleagues, smashing data silos, and triaging resident engagement. To unpack this with me, I have three brilliant speakers: Deirdre Labassiere, Head of Governance and Company Secretary at Parasol Homes and Corporate Trainer at Actuate Global; Jennifer Cairns, Director of Corporate Services at West of Scotland Housing Association; and Seb Barker, Co-founder and Chief Operating Officer at Beam. To get started, we'll go to each of you to expand a little bit on your job titles, and then please give a few words about what we mean by housing in AI. I'll go to you first, Seb, and then you can take the easy definitions.
Thanks so much. I'm Seb and co-founded a social enterprise called Beam at the end of 2017. Prior to that, I worked almost entirely in housing, but specifically rough sleeping support, drug and alcohol recovery support as well. And I suppose I loved that job during that period, but also have become slightly frustrated by a lot of the technology and tools that were coming into services during that period. Met someone whose background was very different to mine. He was a tech entrepreneur. And so we started Beam to try and marry these two previously quite distinct worlds of frontline support in housing and also tech and now AI.
Brilliant. And shall we go over to Jennifer?
Yeah, I'm Jennifer. I'm Director of Corporate Services at West of Scotland Housing Association, and I've worked there for 11 years. My remit at West of Scotland is around, well, it's quite a wide remit, but in respect to this side of it, I've got IT, but I've also got governance and risk. So there's a real conflict for me in terms of AI. In our organisation, AI has really grown from staff. We had a couple of individuals within our staff team that were really interested in AI and really wanted to develop it within our organisation. So that is how AI has grown within our organisation, and our main focus has been around really time-consuming manual processes and looking at how we can use AI to free up our staff to spend time with our tenants, and that's been a real focus probably over the past 18 months or so for us.
Awesome. And then Deirdre to go last.
Thank you. So I am Deirdre Labassiere, and I'm a governance and risk specialist working across housing, charities and the cultural sector. In housing, I do quite a lot of interim work, but I'm currently serving as Head of Governance and Company Secretary at Parasol Homes, and there I lead on compliance, risk and assurance frameworks. I also chair Women Acting in Today's Society, which is a domestic abuse charity, and Legacy Centre of Excellence. So I work daily at the intersection of governance, community and innovation. And my work centers a lot around embedding what I call governance with soul. So that's stewardship, orientation, understanding, and legacy into how organizations respond to change, whether it's regulation, culture, or emerging technologies like AI. And when we talk about AI in housing, it isn't just about, the shiny new tools that we're getting. It's about how technology can support the fundamentals. For me, it's about keeping homes safe, building the trust with the tenants, and using our resources really wisely. I recently spoke at the Housing Community Summit, and it was all about moving from reactive repairs to predictive maintenance and freeing staff up to spend more time face-to-face with the tenants and using data responsibly in terms of tailoring responses. So our services. So it's all about, those deep governance questions for me. It's like, how do we safeguard data? How do we avoid bias? And how do we make sure that the residents are co-designers in our processes?
Excellent. Jennifer, you spoke about being very far into your journey on adopting these kind of tools about 18 months in. So can you please outline how that 18 months has gone and what kind of processes you've put in place to start bringing these tools in to save your staff time?
Yeah, it's happened really organically, to be honest. And it started off with we were developing a new allocations module on our system for allocation of houses. And we wanted to look at how we interacted with applicants in terms of their housing options. So, for example, we could have somebody wanting to apply for a 5-bedroom house in the West End of Glasgow, which we don't have. So we wanted to create a process, an automated process whereby somebody could put in the requirements for housing, and it would give them some kind of advice around where we've got housing. So, for example, if somebody put that in, they would get a response to say, look, we don't have any 5-bedroom homes within Glasgow. However, we've got 5-bedroom homes in these areas of Glasgow. So if you're interested in applying, etc., and that takes them to our online application form. That the point of that was being done manually by our customer service team, so it was really, really time consuming. They were responding to applicants once they'd already submitted an application with potentially what their housing options are. So we've now got an automated system whereby applicants can go in and get that data. All the data sits behind it in terms of what stock we've got in what areas, etc. And they get an automated response as soon as they submit their housing options form. They get it within minutes, whereas it was days and days of work for the customer service team. So it's really saved time. And that was an individual staff member. It was our customer service team leader who looked into it. He looked at all the videos online and spoke to the corporate management team and said, is this something that I could do? And at that point, it wasn't any personal data involved. It is just all stock information, etc. And we thought, right, let's give it a go. And then that generated some other ideas from staff team. And then we thought, actually, no, we need the governance in me was like, no, we can't just be doing this sort of all over the place. We need some kind of structure. And we set up an AI working group of staff that were interested in AI. And it's not led by IT. It is led, IT attend, but it is led. And from that, we developed an AI policy. We developed a risk assessment. We've developed a governance framework. We've got a checklist in place for AI projects, and that AI working groups meet monthly and they discuss new projects. And we've got a process in place now around making sure that there's a risk assessment where applicable qualitative impact assessment, etc., and making sure there's plenty of testing and it's launched properly and there's training. So we do have a bit more structure around, but it did very much come from individuals coming up with ideas. We're in a position now to do more. We really need to consider the use of personal data. And that's something that we're considering at the moment with our board and our staff team and what we need, because I'm the data protection officer as well. So it's thinking about what processes we need in place to make sure that we're still protecting personal data. So we're kind of at a turning point at the moment. We've done probably a lot of what we can do without using any personal data, and we've got more ideas, but it would involve that. So it's how to do that securely.
Excellent. Thank you, Jennifer. Seb, your work at Beam does use personal data of your service users, so maybe it might be worth going into what challenges that have arisen in adopting these tools in terms of personal data, but how you can do that safely.
Yeah, absolutely. So how Beam has worked historically is we partner with local government housing teams and we provide outsourced housing support, normally helping people into the private rented sector. And kind of part of our proposition there really was we could use technology to create better outcomes, but also make the life of the caseworkers easier. So with the big shifts in AI, we were very excited to see how we could really try and accelerate that approach. The first tool we built for that casework team is something called Magic Notes, which uses AI. And how that works is if you're supporting someone the first time you meet them, you'll record the conversation. So you can do that on your phone or you can do it on your computer. And then after the meeting is complete, you'll get a structured assessment of what happened in that meeting. And we'll have built that template so it pulls out all of the relevant sections and covers all the relevant actions. Really importantly, and probably to be honest, the most important thing is the caseworker still needs to check the content of that assessment. So it's not the case that it automatically gets saved and they can check it if they want. They have to check it before it gets saved. It just does a lot of the heavy lifting for them. So checking something we found sort of cut down quite a simple use case, but their admin time by about 8 hours each week. So it was pretty impactful for that team overall. Other things which are important to mention. So one is that although the system uses AI, none of the personal data is saved by any of the AI models. So it keeps all the data private and safe. And then we then host all the data in the UK. So it's not leaving the region, going to the US or something like that, where it could be compromised. It's all kept safe and secure there. And then we make it very, very easy and quick for people to kind of check and confirm the accuracy of it. And if there are any issues at all, they can let us know and we can quickly and rapidly respond to it. So yeah, I think it's a really good note of caution. You need to be careful and thoughtful in how you roll out these tools, but that 8 hours a week time saving for us has been very, very exciting. We also recently completed a pilot with Hyde Housing, using it in their tenancy sustainment and ASB teams, and they found similar time savings as well. So trying to sort of make the admin easier versus totally automate it feels like the direction of travel for us at the moment.
That makes total sense. With the current adoption by quite large housing providers, as you said, I'm going to go to Deirdre to speak about how can we bring teams along on this journey? How can we make sure that those who are working with these tools and who are new to these tools don't feel like they are given just yet another piece of tech that they have to deal with? How do you express the advantages to them?
Yes, so that's a really, really important question, because I think that bringing staff on the AI journey isn't just about systems training, not about getting, the shiny new tools. It's about stewardship of trust and orientation to the purpose for which the tools and the AI is there for. And that's fundamentally about the tenants and ensuring that people are in safe, decent homes and that they feel safe in them. Also, helping staff to understand what the AI tools are about and listening to their concerns and having them as co-designers in relation to the policies and the procedures that shape that. So you're shaping a legacy of confidence for staff, because I think if AI feels imposed, it will fail. But if it feels co-created, it will thrive. So I think it's very important to ensure that staff are informed about the AI tools, the whys. I was really glad to hear that Jennifer was talking about the data protection piece. And, I used to be a data protection officer, and I remember the days when GDPR was first coming in, and it was that idea about design or default and how we bring staff along to that in that journey. So you involve staff, you inform staff about things, you involve them, and you inspire them to use the in terms of building a culture where AI is introduced in a way that leaves a legacy of innovation, care, and resident trust and staff as well.
Thank you very much, Deirdre. Jennifer, do you want to expand on how you brought together the enthusiastic members in the association to develop this working group, and how those working group meetings came along, and how those working group meetings came along?
Yeah, I think we've been really fortunate that it has been something that it has come from staff members. They've really wanted to try it. It hasn't been something that senior management have tried to impose or wanted to do it. And I'll be completely honest, I was really skeptical at the beginning of this, I just saw the sort of governance and the risk side. And I mean, I've done a few conferences in AI, and I'm doing this today, and some of my colleagues they can't believe that I'm doing these things, because they're like, remember what you were like at the beginning. So I think it is really important that you bring people on. And I originally joined the AI group as sort of data protection officer. That was my role, to be the one to kind of step in. But as I say, we had a really few individuals that were really enthusiastic, and they've implemented different sort of projects within their team. And I think we've really seen the benefits of those projects and saving staff time. And staff teams have really seen the benefit in that kind of chat and showcasing those projects. We have every 2 months we have an all staff in person briefing sort of training session, and we've showcased the AI projects at those, and that's really got enthusiasm going. The kind of blocker that we're at the moment is people are really enthusiastic and they're coming up with new ideas, but we've maybe only got a few individuals that have really got that sort of technical knowledge in terms of how to use the different AI tools. So this year in our training programme, we have got sort of different levels of AI training on our training programme, and those training is being delivered by members of the working group. So there's going to be a very basic one, which is people that maybe really don't know anything about AI, showing them how to use Copilot, showing them sort of our different AI projects, then to sort of a more advanced one around how to use Copilot and Power Automate to automate processes and use AI. So that's probably our next step as well. As I said before, we're really at a kind of a crossroads in terms of personal data. And it was really good to hear Seb say all of that, but also around rolling it out across the organisation and where we're coming up with ideas. This year, we've got a key business objective around identifying inefficient work practices. And we're working with teams on that. And that isn't all about AI. There's system improvements, process improvements, but we do have a list of ideas that staff know that AI will help them with something and it will really reduce workload, but they don't know quite how to go about it. And it's implementing that. And I just think it has been really beneficial for us that it has grown so organically, and it's members of the AI working group that have come up with the ideas, and they're working with staff teams on the ideas. So that's been really good. The AI working groups themselves, it's just about considering new projects, thinking about the implications of new projects, etc. Any new project that we implement, we evaluate, we test after it's been implemented. So it's kind of keeping up to date on how existing projects are going as well. So it's been a really positive experience for us, and I think it has been because it's come from individuals and our staff teams that's really got people on board with it.
Yeah, that sounds like exactly the right way to go about it. First, there's a group of not quite experts, but definitely enthusiasts that come together. And then you asked everyone in their organization that is going to be affected by these tools, what problems do you have? And then working it through with those enthusiastic officers, how you can use these tools to address those problems. Now we're going to move on to what might be a CIH podcast first. We're going to play a little game. The Ada Lovelace Institute, a specialist think tank in AI and data ethics, compiled a pretty substantial comparison of how different sectors in the UK are regulated, including AI. Social housing wasn't included. However, we can fill in the gaps. I would like you to answer the following questions with yes or no. Scream out together. I know that this might be chaos on the recording. And you need to answer as to whether these guardrails apply to the social housing sector, and then whether you think it applies to the AI sector. Okay, let's go. Proactive risk monitoring, social housing sector.
Yes.
Yes.
AI sector.
I say yes.
Yes.
On balance.
On balance, yes.
It is voluntary currently. Safety standards, social housing sector.
Yes.
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 AI sector.
No.
No.
No, but should have.
It's currently voluntary. Don't worry, this isn't trick questions. They're not all voluntary when I asked you to say yes or no. Independent standards, social housing sector.
Independent
Independent standards.
I'm thinking of the governance and financial viability standard, and I would say yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
AI sector.
Voluntary.
Yeah, voluntary, yeah.
Yeah, voluntary.
None.
None at all.
Although
No.
that's not technically yes or no, is it?
Market entry authorization. Social housing sector. We have to register with the social housing register
Yes.
to be a provider of social housing. So that would be our market entry authorization. AI sector.
Yes. Well,
No, I don't think the eyes. No, I think the eye sector that they don't.
do they need to depend on like partnerships and they might not need RSH authorization, but there's still that whole thing around data ethics and GDPR, cybersecurity frameworks, I'm thinking. So
Yeah.
I would still say yes in a way.
Really good point. Like every implementation of Magic Notes we've done, they check like Cyber Essentials Plus, the ISO qualifications. They do a data protection impact assessment where they audit your compliance and governance. There is, I think, admittedly on the side of the public sector and social housing, a lot of infrastructure in place to check that nothing is rolled out that isn't carefully thought about and
Yeah.
safe. But that's different to saying, could you roll it out in a way that wasn't thoughtful in another space? Possibly you could.
That's a really good answer, Seb. That shows that within our public sector and within social housing, there are a lot of guardrails in place that we then apply when we are adopting these tools. But currently in the AI sector, there are none. Independent regulator, social housing.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yes. With bells on.
And then AI sector.
No.
No, there isn't. And there should be.
Apart from in the case of some medical usage. Enforcement powers, social housing sector.
Yes.
Yes.
AI sector.
No.
No.
No, you do have cases in the US, don't you, where they're litigating on copyright and taking them to court. I don't know if that would count as enforcement, but probably not in the same way as social housing, definitely not.
That would count as enforcement, and you're right, Seb, that is some of the way in which regulation is coming forward now within
There is also, I heard of the EU AI Act 2026, but then, whether or not that can apply to the UK is another matter. But then here in the UK, we have the ICO, we have the Financial Conduct Authority, Ofcom, so that they would be enforcement provisions.
Excellent. And then routes to redress, social housing sector.
Yes.
Yes.
And then AI sector.
I'm guessing no.
No, there has been that case recently where the family are suing OpenAI based on the fact that there was a suicide incident with someone who was interacting with it, and I think that they are engaging in that and trying to work out to put more guardrails in. But again, I don't think it's the same thing. It's definitely not the same equivalent that you would have in social housing.
No.
I would think actually that we have guardrails that might not be as obvious. So we have data protection, which we've mentioned previously. If AI leads to discriminatory outcomes, complaints can be made through the Equality Act. And then there's also if there are challenges in terms of AI-driven HR or recruitment decisions, those can be challenged at employment tribunal level. So I think that in terms of the housing context, if we're looking for tenants, for example, they might want to look at internal complaints procedures, the housing ombudsman. We have the regulator, which we've mentioned previously as an enforcement. And I think if there are really extreme cases where AI decisions might be linked to statutory duties, so like homelessness allocations, for example, tenants can seek judicial review as well. So I think we have the guardrails, but we don't have like specific tangible guardrail in place at the moment.
I think that social housing has more guardrails than the AI sector does presently, as illustrated by that little quiz that we just did. Deirdre, I'd like you to just go into some of the things that you said about biases being built into HR systems, and also we've had some reports about algorithms being used in terms of justice, but also housing allocations and those turning out poorly. With those kind of biases, they are built in at a design level, and they are better regulated there. How can housing providers understand those risks and then address them?
Yeah, I think that they need to be definitely thinking about looking at HR systems. So the risks that are raised there, because like you say, AI recruitment tools can inherit bias from historical data. So for example, past hiring patterns that favored certain demographics. And then also housing allocations, like you've said, where, algorithms could prioritize applicants or I don't know, looking at assessing risk that's been embedded in bias, so postcode data linked to socioeconomic disadvantage and things like that. And bias can be invisible, but really deeply harmful, and then ends up reinforcing inequality under a guise of objectivity. So I think that housing providers need to be able to understand, treat AI as high risk until it's proven otherwise. So they need to ask questions about who's trained this algorithm, what was the data that was inputted into it, who benefits, who's excluded. Housing providers also need to keep AI aligned with the organization's purpose, being really clear about fair access, about equity, about tenant well-being. And if the AI outcomes contradict those values, then that's a red flag. And then also think about understanding, from staff. So do staff actually understand enough about the algorithms to ask the right questions? And asking the suppliers to explain in just plain basic English how do the systems actually work, and to provide bias audits and fairness testing as well. And I think we have to really remember that bias today becomes tomorrow's legacy. So if housing providers adopt AI blindly, they risk entrenching and then embedding inequality. So setting a legacy of transparency, recording decisions, testing impacts, showing tenants the basis of their choices. So some practical things that could be done, I think, for any AI tool that's been brought into an organization, do an equality impact assessment on that before it's adopted. Require, I think, independent audits of algorithms for bias. When you're looking at your procurement contracts, embed explainability clauses into those procurement contracts. So just in plain English, what does this mean, so that the providers can't hide behind that. And human oversight. Just make sure that you have that human oversight. So no major allocation or HR decision could be made by AI alone. And as Jennifer has been talking about, just training staff, having those AI champions, and training staff on the AI ethics so that they spot when outputs don't feel right.
Amazing. Thank you, Deirdre. I'm going to kind of unpick what you said and then direct it at Seb. As somebody who's been on both sides, a service provider who wanted to make sure that the purpose of your organization could actually be done more efficiently and with better outcomes. And now as a system provider, how do you explain how these algorithms work? How do you make sure that those who are adopting your platform know what they're getting themselves in for?
Absolutely. So yeah, I guess the first point on a more sort of technical design piece, which I touched on earlier, but I think is very, very important, is that it's not looking to replace the judgment or expertise of the frontline worker. It's looking to make aspects of their job easier, so they're spending less time doing pure admin, but it's not looking to completely remove all admin time, nor is it looking to say, this is what the system's told me to do and I have to do it. So it's really just trying to support and guide more than it is replace. So that's one part of it. But then the other part of it, which we've also talked a little bit around and we feel very passionate about, is that the technology is really only 50% of how you begin to deliver a change in using something like AI. We put a lot of time and effort into training, culture change, adoption, bringing people on that journey. A couple of ways you can do that. So we normally always start with a pilot, as we've done with Hyde Housing when we were testing it in their tenancy sustainment teams. And what that allows you to do is pick a discrete group of workers rather than sort of make everyone feel they suddenly have to use it, and have a kind of full analysis done at the end. And that analysis is not just looking at efficiency. It's not just saying, oh, they saved 8 hours a week, so we're going to roll this out. It's also looking to understand more qualitative aspects as well. For example, did people enjoy using the tool? Did they find it easy to use? Were there any questions or concerns that came up, and how were they dealt with? And that allows you to surface these quite interesting points, which might not be that obvious from a distance. One thing that we've had repeatedly on Magic Notes is particularly around the quality of the conversation, because it sounds quite subtle, but because you're recording the meeting, you're not having to constantly break eye contact with people you're talking to. They're often quite difficult conversations, if we're honest. Often people are in a hard time, which is why you're meeting them in that moment. So you're much more present and engaged, not needing to tap at your laptop, and that means you're able to more actively listen. We've also had feedback around like neurodivergence, so people that struggle with typing. Actually, you see them using it for everything, not just in the sessions with people they're supporting, but even later in the afternoon, they'll just be speaking into their phone to get the assessment written up more quickly and easily than they would otherwise be able to. So yeah, you kind of do that analysis at the end, take it into account, and then very thoughtfully roll it out across a wider group. A lot we could go into there, but I think making it very peer-led has been a great learning for us. So not having like a manager or me kind of come in and say, this is Magic Notes and you have to use it, but actually we find the people on the pilot who are in most cases very evangelical about the use of it, will then train others up. So we'll do a kind of train the trainer session with them. It's just so much more powerful to hear about the impact of something when you're hearing it from someone you've worked with for a long time that does the same job as you, versus someone who's a bit more removed. And we also have kind of analytics in the product as well. So if you're a manager, you can kind of see how your team are using it. And if someone's using it a lot and someone's not using it as much, you can just buddy them up and just make that skill sharing a little bit easier. So yeah, a lot more we could say on this topic, but those would be the top lines for me.
Awesome. So we've spoken about how to embed these operationally, how to look at the risks that might be involved and what the opportunities may be for staff and how to process that adoption. What are the outcomes for residents and how do we bring them along on this journey? And I will direct that towards Jennifer.
As I'd mentioned earlier, a lot of our sort of AI tools that we're using, it's to save staff time, to spend more time with tenants, and that's the main benefit for tenants. We're seeing probably post-COVID, and most housing providers are seeing the same, a real increase in more complex issues in terms of our tenants. We've got a lot more tenants really struggling with mental health issues, therefore requiring a lot more support in terms of their housing. And that is taking a lot more time in respect of our staff. So it's really to free up that time to benefit our tenants. The housing options form, that sort of process I mentioned earlier, that's really to benefit our applicants. We've seen a real, we're turning around applications, but between that and our online housing application, which isn't AI, that's a system product, we're turning around in housing applications within 24 hours, whereas before applicants were maybe having to wait a couple of months. So that's made a real difference to applicants. In terms of customer facing, we've got a chatbot called Westy, to be dog, on our website, and that's the only sort of customer facing thing that we've done so far, that customers can use that to ask any question, any query, and we monitor that and are regularly updating the answers to that. I suppose the only other thing that we've done that benefits our customers is around, we've developed a tool, an AI tool around damp and mold. that when any of our team get in an email or a correspondence from a customer that is about damp and mould, and it doesn't need to say the words damp and mould, it could refer to condensation, black spots, all the words relating to damp and mould. That's a high priority email, and it gets sent to the manager as a high priority email top in his inbox. So that's something that we're using to really prioritise, because our policy is that we respond and get somebody out to damp and mould cases within 3 days. So that really focuses around that area. We are in the position, even though we're going to use personal data, we're not going to be using AI for any decision making, based exactly what Deirdre outlined around the bias point. There will always be that human intervention. But we've got a tenant advisory group, and we've started to involve them in discussions on how we can use AI to benefit customers and get their view on it. So we've just started talking to them regarding that, and getting their ideas on how we can use AI to further benefit our customers. So I suppose in various ways, reducing time and staff having more time to spend with customers, really being able to deal with priority issues for our customers. And when hopefully the board approves to use personal data, actually really being able to improve our customer service as well.
Awesome. We're almost at the end of the recording, and we'll sign off by putting our futurist hats on. Deirdre, what's your biggest prediction for AI in the sector over the next 5 to 10 years?
Gosh, that is a, I think there are lots of people who have lots of very different perspectives on what will come for AI in the next 5 to 10 years. I think that when we think about what's going to be coming next, it's going to be all about, for me, it's legacy. It's about, right now we're in the early adoption stage, but the leap will be from reactive to predictive. And the legacy is going to depend on whether AI is used to empower or to exclude. So I actually predict that AI will leave a legacy, whether we like it or not. It'll be a legacy, and that we need that if we embed meaningful governance from the perspective of stewarding effectively, having the right level of orientation towards tenants being at the center, understanding the risks, and then of course leaving that legacy, we will have a tool that supports the sector to move forward in a really empowered way and not one of exclusion.
Deirdre, we build the future.
We build the future.
Seb, what are your predictions for AI in the sector?
I hope it will do a few things, really. So today it's mainly around making admin easier and cutting down that enormous amount of admin that in some cases I think has come to slightly dominate the job. But you could see it evolving in a way where it's like AI powered advice and guidance for the frontline workers. And so where today you have a system that often struggles with capacity and staff training and finding people to come into those posts, you can more quickly skill people up and get them up to speed on the job. And then, yeah, maybe a bit utopian, but I do think today we often see a salient characteristic of a lot of the public sector systems as inequality and division. And I think if we can embed this thoughtfully and well in exactly the way Deirdre's describing, we can move from a place of, being all about the admin burden today to being much more human-centered and giving staff the time to really sit in front of another human being and hear what they need to improve their life and in some cases turn it around.
Utopian arguments are all too often missing from this conversation. So I feel like those two answers from Seb and Deirdre are really important to make sure that we have the wish to make sure that it's a utopian outcome rather than some of the very scary predictions that we see. And shall we end with Jennifer?
Yeah, I think it's interesting you're saying about the scary predictions. I think in the sector, it seems to be a very mixed take up and so far in Scotland anyway in terms of AI, and I think even within our organisation there's probably fears around AI. We're going to be sort of delivering services by robots, etc. But to really take away a lot of that time-consuming manual tasks, really improve what we deliver for our tenants, and being able to really improve and deliver more for our tenants without a significant cost, because we're all facing challenges in terms of cost restrictions, etc. around that. So I think from somebody who 18 months ago was really, really sceptical and didn't want to have anything to do with it, I think it's really exciting what it'll be able to do for tenants. And I think it's really important, the staff side of it, to bring them along. I mean, we're developing a new people and culture strategy, and one of the strands I want to include around that is AI, to provide reassurance to our staff that we're not implementing AI to replace staff. You know, as Gadir just said, if you stick to your core values and your ethics, and your tenants and your people are at the heart of it, then it can be really, really powerful. But we will always need people in terms of the support and services that we deliver, and that would kind of be the core through it for me throughout the journey.
We have spoken about how the rash and unconsidered adoption of AI platforms could pose a risk to organisations, and in the absence of external regulation, how housing providers must put in the guardrails themselves. Though there are challenges, the opportunities to delegate tasks to free up people for their central missions are plenty. Our recommendation is to start with identified problems, choose trusted partners with shared values, and to start having these conversations with your teams now. Thank you to all of my guests today, and to you for listening. Tune in to our next podcast on our website or YouTube channel.